called body awareness, the ability to know where each individual part of the body is at during any given time. And it's important that your child knows about that as far as their development. Now, Laura Kendall is with Red Door Pediatric Therapy, and she's joining me today. Good morning to you, Laura.
Good morning.
It seems like it's such a simple thing, but it's actually an important part of a child's development. Tell me what you mean by body awareness.
Yeah, so there are two components of body awareness. We consider body awareness, and then what helps us get that body awareness, which is proprioception. So body awareness really boils down to our ability to know where our body is. So our legs, our arms, our head, without having to look at what our legs or our arms are doing. So this helps us to walk up the stairs without looking at our feet. It helps us to walk around obstacles without bumping into them. Even with smaller movements, so handwriting or pushing our arm through our sleeve when we're getting dressed, all of those things really tie into body awareness.
You and I were talking a little bit just before this segment, and I said to you that there is some science behind this, and there is some research that's been done, because a lot of times you'll say somebody misses a step or kicks a step or something like that. You think of that as a clumsy child, but that's not necessarily the case. There are some things that can be done to help a child along the way.
Right. So we think of that proprioception piece, which is really what allows us to have body awareness. So when I think about proprioception, it's really receptors that are in our muscles, our joints, our tendons that are telling our body where it's moving and sending those messages to the brain to communicate. So when those messages are slow or delayed, a lot of times what we see is kind of this miscommunication where kids are clumsy, or they're tripping over their feet, or they're running into things. So we can certainly do some different activities to help them.
Okay, what are some indications or indicators that maybe parents or others can see in a child that would say to them that there's probably an issue here?
Absolutely. So the different things that you'll see with kids are kids that run into objects a lot. They'll run into people within their surroundings. They just really have a hard time avoiding that. You'll see a lot of falling and tripping. Kids that have a hard time mimicking. So if you play Simon Says with kids and they can't do what you're doing, or can't move your arm in the way that that you're moving your arm, that is a big indicator. Same thing with difficulty maintaining personal space. So they're always really, really close to you when they're talking to you is another thing that we notice. Kids that are clumsy or trip over objects we'll see. And then kids that have a difficulty learning new movements. So they're kind of just generally uncoordinated. And kids that don't like to be in the dark or don't like to close their eyes to do things, and that seems scary for them. That's another thing that we'll see.
Let me ask you this, Laura. Is it something that eventually with time that most children grow out of, or is this something that'll need some attention?
I think it's something that we really need to look at and give some attention to. Things that we'll see, when we're not catching up with that, is we really rely on our vision for everything we do, even when we get older. Or you'll see kids that are older that will reach their hand out for the wall when they walk by, kind of as a guide to know where they're at. Also, kids as they get older should be able to have a conversation while they're walking, or walk and navigate obstacles in the living room while they're playing, and they will have a difficult time doing that.
So they're overcompensating maybe in some other ways to try and hide that. Is that an indication too that they may be trying to hide some of those issues?
Absolutely, that's a big indication.
All right, tell us about what we can do to help. What are some areas that we can do to help our children along?
Sure. There are a lot of different games we can play with them to help that body awareness. So we can really help them by having them identify body parts. So point to where your toes are, point to where your eyes are, point to where your ears are. Is really helpful. Other games like Simon Says or Hokey Pokey or Twister, where we have to mimic those movements that other people are doing, or move in a certain pattern, is very helpful. Balance is another thing that we can really work on with them. So doing a couch cushion obstacle course, standing on like a wobble board or some surface that's more unstable. Riding a bike also kind of pulls everything together. So the balance, knowing where they're at in space on the sidewalk, things like that. And then having them do kind of silly movements in the mirror so that they can see what their body is doing is helpful.
You know, Laura, in listening to these segments that we do on a weekly basis with you guys, one of the overriding themes that seems to me that I hear a lot from you guys is verbal communicate. Here are the ears, here are here's the nose, and things like that. So pointing things out like that and paying attention seems to be something that goes a long way in many areas.
Absolutely. You know, when we tell kids what we're doing or we make them more aware of it, it just gives them another cue to really think about what they're doing.
Okay, we're down to about a minute, Laura. Is there anything else as far as this topic is concerned that you want to touch on?
Sure. So some other things, you know, we really talk about those receptors in our muscles that send the messages back to our brain to tell our body where we are. So some things to wake those receptors up to help your kid with that body awareness would be giving them big bear hugs or squeezes, encourage jumping or stomping or wheelbarrow walks, anything that's going to give them some big heavy input. Same with, we call it heavy work, so carrying grocery bags with a little weight in it, or pushing carts or laundry baskets across the floor with some weight in them. We always think canned goods are good things to add to get some extra weight.
Perfect. Laura Kendall, Red Door Pediatric Therapy. Where do we get a hold of you? We have further questions.
You can find us at our Bismarck, Minot, or Grand Forks locations.
All right, there are the addresses. There's the phone number for any of the locations. Give them a call. Laura, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
You bet. We'll see you next time. Stay with us. North Dakota Today is going to continue right after this.